And it's also all available online on your website.
Really, this is great work, because it just, I was able to follow that on Friday. You know, there's a 45-second to a minute delay on YouTube,
I figured
and
that,
what's coming across on a phone.
Oh, I bet that about drove you crazy. Of the nature of the sheriff's budget being so large and so impactful, the sheriff has 2 more meetings, both subsequent to the fleet management meeting. So if you have any requests for analysis, this is a good time to start thinking about what you would like, and we can put those together and have those prepared in advance so you have time to review before the next 2 sheriff meetings.
Okay.
So with that, I'm going to bring up this lovely pivot table that Michelle put together for us. So this is basically the same snapshot, it's just shifted a little differently from what you saw at the prior meeting. These are all of the sheriff's org sets. These are the sum of the last year's costs for the org set, this year's ask for the org set, and the sum of the change, and then the revenues are over here on this side. So we'll just kick off wherever, Sheriff, you'd like to start, and then we have the capital summaries, the new programs, operating expense detail as well that we can look at as the conversation progresses.
Excuse me, question, Dena. You have sum of change for the expenses, and then you have sum of change for revenue?
Yep.
Okay, is there a total as we go across, or are we're looking at each individual one, is that correct?
Discreetly.
Discreetly,
Yeah, we're looking
okay.
discreetly, yes.
All right, fair enough.
All right, away we go.
Thank you, Commissioners. The Office of the Sheriff, as you know, is a constitutionally mandated position. It's tasked with many other duties, but is also one in partnership with the prosecutor as being the primary law enforcement provider for the Kootenai County, for the county. Additionally, the sheriffs are mandated to operate the jail, work with the Transportation Department as the vendor for driver's licenses, oversee and conduct search and rescue operations, patrol incorporated and unincorporated parts of the county, including our 18 lakes, 56 miles of navigable river, and about 350,000 acres of public lands. What we have here is the staff preparation of the estimated expenses and revenue for the Sheriff's Office. And I emphasize the word estimate. We're in the stuff's happens business, and we can't anticipate everything that's going to happen in the next year. There's just too many variables. You know, a year ago we were in the high 400s in inmates. Today we're in the mid 300s. We don't know how that's going to impact us as time goes on. We don't know how many major crimes we're going to have, and those have a huge financial impact depending on the type of testing we have to do and the investigations and interviews and where we have to travel and all those type of things. Major events play a major part of our budget, and we're writing budgets in February. It's hard to anticipate what major events may occur a year and a half from now, like hydroplane races or things like that. And since the county doesn't have an ordinance that allows us to recoup those costs from those promoters, we're left to bear it in our budgets, and the county bear those things. Population growth and subsequent growth in demand for services is something it's a little almost predictable, but we know that it's growing rapidly on both aspects of it. Some growth in the budget's inevitable. We know our medical contract for the jail has a COLA built into it. So does our food service contract for the jail. It has a COLA built into it. Those things are have to go up. Fuel costs. Man, I'd love to be able to get my crystal ball out and know what fuel's going to be in a year and a half. But yeah, it's we can do our best estimates based upon the Department of Transportation and Department of Energy, and that's where we usually get our cost per gallon for fuel. We have some unfunded mandates that are variable. This last year, emergency communication officer training, not only the post-initial, but 40 hours of ongoing training for each emergency communication officer is now a mandate, it's in statute. And then the fiasco that the courts unleashed on all of us, Odyssey. Not only my office, but the clerk's office, the courts, huge impact for us as well, and they still haven't figured it out. So I know that's a huge unfunded mandate for everyone. In the past, some of the boards we've gone through this entire process, and then they told us, okay, cut 3% off your operating budget. after we've done all the other cuts. And, you know, that's just not a good way to do business. And I can remember a former commissioner said, I bet you took that 3% out of your fuel budget. And I said, yeah, I did. But I still have to put gas in cars, and you're gonna pay the bill anyway. And that's just not good budgeting. What we're gonna do here today is kind of go through some of the highlight our budget requests in an orderly manner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask the staff, the division commanders, to talk about some of the more important items in their individual budgets. But first, I'm gonna start off with the administrative budget. One of the three priorities, and these aren't in any particular order, is the lateral bonuses and moving bonuses. We know that we hire lateral employees, those who are already certified. It reduces our costs astronomically in getting these people on board and actually staffing positions. That in the past, those bonuses were in the human resources budget, and then we were able to utilize that. We're just requesting that those bonuses be placed into the sheriff's budget directly. Are you finding this as I go along there, Dena?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Second item in the administrative budget is telephone, and it's a huge increase, but some recent court cases, and quite frankly, something that had been recommended by ICRAM years ago, was that if we expect our people to use cell phones to communicate with the public, they should be agency-issued cell phones, not their personal cell phones. And those court cases have ended up with personal cell phones being subpoenaed, data recovered, and sometimes even issued or admitted into evidence in court, thereby depriving the owners of the phones. Many of the local agencies have gone to issuing phones to their officers, including Coeur d'Alene Police and the state police, because they recognize that that's not the way of doing business. And most people don't have a landline anymore. They've just gotten rid of their home phone and can use a cell phone. It also allows us to use the camera function of these phones, not issuing cameras to our deputies for crime scene documentation. The third thing I'd like to highlight is the part-time HR assistant. We had a part-time HR assistant, but when we had this huge influx of hiring and personnel, we ended up reassigning that person to the background and training section. They were in such desperate need of help over there, leaving our one personnel person to handle all the screening of applications, all the contacts, and all that. In the last 3 years, that person screened over 6,600 applications, and they just can't be expected to continue to do that volume of work by themselves. So we're asking for a part-time position there to help that out. And those are the highlights of the administrative side of the budget. And Matt, do you want to start with patrol?
Might as well.
All right.
Oh, stop for a moment.
Okay.
Questions on the administrative?
I'll be interested in going line by line eventually, just because I have line item questions, and by line, I don't have a question on each line, I just have a few here and there, so we can talk about how we wanna approach that later. So that's, I don't have any questions right now.
So do you wanna go on to patrol?
Sure.
Sure. Matt, go right ahead.
Thank you, Matt Street for the record. So the patrol budget in general includes a few different budgets that we work on. So it includes animal control, the actual patrol division, the patrol deputies, our recreation safety section, which is marine, and the OHV budget, search and rescue, and then also SWAT. So each one of those have a separate budget that have been submitted. One of the things that I'd like to point out is in the Sheriff's Patrol budget, there's an increase of $6,000 in line 8077, and that is for digital cameras to be purchased for the deputies. And that particular increase could be eliminated should the cell phone proposal that the sheriff just mentioned become approved. We would cut those from the budget. Another significant project, as you all are aware of, is the request for 37 patrol vehicles. And in previous discussions, we've shared with you all that we understand that that's not a realistic request, even though we base that on what the current fleet management policy is. We understand that funding restrictions are not going to really allow for that to happen.
What line item is that, Matt?
The vehicles,
Mhm.
it's a capital
Oh, it's in
request.
capital, okay, never mind.
But I can also tell you what line
Oh, there it
it
is.
is, cause I just.
Yeah.
Vehicles,
can't.
belts, and accessories, 9010.
Yeah, so just the 37 patrol cars at 73,000 and change comes up to around $2.7 million. So if we reduce that, I know some of the numbers that the sheriff and I talked about, and I think we talked about in previous meetings here in this board, with this board, is that reducing that down to 15 vehicles, which would significantly reduce that request. That's one of the highlights. There's a pretty significant increase in the ammunition and gun supplies, 8067, about $26,600 in increase. And the purpose for that is,
Not capital.
the details are embedded in the playbook, but the predominant reason is the need to change out all of our duty ammo and practice ammo. It needs to be cycled through periodically. And then the replacement cartridges for tasers, because each deputy that requalifies annually expends 2 taser cartridges. And there's a desire to standardize the weapons cache and outfit them all in a standardized fashion. So if somebody loses a firearm due to an investigation, for example, if they're in an officer-involved shooting and their weapons gets collected as evidence, we can issue them another handgun or rifle that is set up in an identical fashion. So presently, the weapons that we have in the armory are, I guess, best described as just a stock firearm. And so we would have to add the different things that the patrol deputies are carrying, like a sight, an optic sight, sling, and magazine carriers and things like that. And so the details of that increase are embedded in the playbook as well. Another pretty substantial increase is in our uniform budget, line 8010, increase of $10,000. And the objective there is to start phasing in the purchase of our Class C uniforms, which are commonly referred to as jumpsuits. And so what the patrol division would like to do is start phasing in the purchase of those jumpsuits for the deputies in lieu of having them purchase them themselves. And they run about $500 per uniform. And so that's why that increase is going on.
So,
Go ahead.
can I just, I have a question. So, we have been purchasing them, but they're buying them.
Yes,
back.
the county's been fronting the money and then they've been coming out through payroll deduction, as I understand it.
Okay, but this time so you're not, the employees will no longer pay for their uniform, you're suggesting that?
That depends on the pleasure of the board.
Sure.
Yeah, if this line item is approved at that amount, then our intent is to start purchasing jumpsuits for them.
We already pay for their Class A and B uniforms outright.
Okay.
And the other, kind of interesting things that I'd like to call your attention to is we're requesting pay stipends for our 6 lead deputy positions, as well as our recreation safety deputies that they handle all our background or backcountry and marine program calls. And then the addition of 1 canine handler. In the previous years, we've always had 3 canine handlers that received a $1 per hour pay stipend for special duty pay. And we added a 4th canine handler this year. So we're looking to budget for that pay stipend for that canine handler. So there's 6 lead deputy positions, 2 rec safety or backcountry deputies, and the canine handler.
And that's $1 an hour stipend.
And those are all reflected, I think it was in the personnel
Yep.
change form.
Right up there.
And that, I'll ask any questions if there's any right now, but otherwise that's kind of the highlights of the patrol division budget.
Good. Questions?
Well, I mean,
You wanna move on to the next one?
well, I have a bunch of questions on patrol, so I don't know if we wanna dive that deep now, or if we just wanna keep it high level now, so I don't know what the pleasure of the board is.
Let's come back, let's just,
Okay.
and then come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay,
Commissioners,
that's
If
okay.
I may just,
Sure.
my understanding of today was we were just gonna kind of throw the big things out there
Mhm.
and let you ask questions. That way, if we need to go back and do a little more research or something
Mhm.
like that, we have the opportunity, because we don't come back again to the 29th. here.
Right.
Right.
And that way we can kind of see
Yeah.
what questions you have, but we want to just hit those, that high point right
We're
now.
on the same page.
Okay,
Yeah, we wanna get through it at a high level, but at the same time, we might wanna flag certain items
Sure.
for further discussion on the 29th. But, you know, we have 2 hours allocated today, so we can keep going. I'm thinking maybe after the first hour, we'll see how far we've gone, and then maybe we wanna go back and either ask questions or flag those items for further discussion. But let's keep going for now, how's that?
Okay.
Next.
no, no.
I'm done with patrol.
John, you wanna go start with jail?
Sure.
Alright.
I'll start out A budget. Well, the big one that probably is gonna jump off the page is the overtime. We did a 3-year average of that, which was $602,513. Every year we've asked for that 3-year average. It's usually been around 400 to 500, and then every year the board's given us 215. And their justification for that has been, well, if you're short on people, your salary will cover that. As a general rule, that's been pretty close to true, but I'm still asking for my 3-year average. Don't know what my staffing levels will be if they stay where they're at. Hopefully it'll be much less than that, but that's where that number came from, was just based on 3 year. The other, there's a $75,180 request. That's for holiday buyback. That's something we haven't budgeted for in the past.
Can I explain the holiday buyback real quick?
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
In order to maintain staffing, you know, these guys work their holidays, and so they accrue that 8 hours of time that, you know, per county policy. But in order to maintain our staffing levels, we bought that back. We managed to do a salary salvage in the past. And so it's a dollar for dollar, you know, whatever the rate is for how many hours. And we usually limit that to a maximum of 80 hours that they can sell back. This last year, we weren't comfortable that we had enough salary salary, so we limited it to 40 hours. Or 20 hours, excuse me. And, but because we've never budgeted for it before, my direction to the staff is let's put it in our budgets for this holiday buyback, so we can actually show the expense there.
Okay.
The only position for the custody division I asked for, I have one sergeant that I want to convert to a lieutenant position to get our structure to mirror the patrol side, where we have one lieutenant over 4 sergeants on the front side of the week and a lieutenant on the back side of the week for the 4 sergeants and the 2 shifts on that side of the week. It's roughly around $8,000 for that conversion. The other 2 positions I'll let Captain Deek speak to for the services division of the jail. That's it on the A budget. On the B budget, our total B budget went up $86,845. Medical contract and our food contract was over $90,000. So in reality, our B budget actually was about a $3,500 decrease if we take those 2 contract items out. So we tried to be pretty lean as we could on that, not put any significant increases in there. Said we were able to actually lower that a little bit. Our C budget, I'll let Captain Deek speak to the vans and the expedition. The big item I have on there is the body scanner. It's $135,000. I believe this is the 3rd or 4th year we've asked for that. I know
I was just gonna say that, by the way.
you know, it's a need that just does not go away. Inmates know that they're gonna go to jail at some time, and they hide drugs where we can't find them without a body scanner. I think the potential liability we have is a lot more than $135,000 for that, and said try to keep our budget as lean as we could this year. I'd really like to see that one go through. That's a really high priority for the custody division. Our overcrowding budget this year, the 511 program. Last year I asked for $225,000. Looks like we're on pace to, knock on wood, spend very little of that. So I cut that in half. It's tough to anticipate. Anytime we get over 430 inmates in custody, we're gonna have to ship them out just because we'll be overcrowded at that point. Like the sheriff said, we're floating closer to that 360 to 375 range, and there's a chance we won't have to touch that money. But I just, without knowing, I feel like I still gotta put some in there just in case. case. But that is $112,000 decrease to the budget, which covers a big chunk of that body scanner.
By the time we ever get around to approving it, John, there'll probably be an upgrade.
You never know, you never know.
Well, that is an upgrade, because the
Yeah.
original price was 98,000.
It went up about 35 grand from last year, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say that every time the ask comes, it's just a little bit more, the cost of it keeps going up.
Yeah, it was significant this year. Other item you'll see, and it's a new program, that I talked to you about the Iris ID system. That's about a $16,000 program by the time we implement that. Other than that, it's, the budget's real similar, very few changes to it over what the last ballot.
Commissioners?
Yeah, go right ahead, man.
I had just reminded, John's statement about a new program reminded me that the Patrol Division is also requesting a new program for our dive team. And so previous equipment and training has been loosely funded out of our vessel account dollars, which some of the times you can link that to boating-related drownings, other times you can't. And so we want to establish a new program for the dive team. We're going to have a standalone budget for that, to buy equipment, dry suits and dive tanks and buoyancy compensators and things like that, to provide training for those team members, but not pay for it out of vessel account dollars entirely.
I saw that you had some statistics. How far back do those go?
Statistics for?
For how much is boater related and not boater related?
I don't have an answer for you right now.
Okay.
I'd have to look at that and see. But we could, probably could generate some further statistics if needed.
Thanks. Maybe 3 years or something
Okay.
would be fine.
Okay.
I believe that was all I had, Sheriff.
So following detention, we have,
Yeah, I can speak to the services side of
okay,
the jail. The major request there is for an additional warrants extradition clerk. The sheriff alluded to some of the compounding problems we have in there with the e-filing paperwork in there. The processing of warrants currently hold about 5,000 warrants in there, and they have to be validated annually. We're currently working with the prosecutor's office to reduce that number. We've got a proposal going forward to expire out some of the old warrants that are in there, but currently the way it sits, our staff is just overtaxed. There's a warrants extradition supervisor, I guess we would call it that, not really a supervisor, a lead position in there, and one clerk to manage the workload in there. We've been utilizing seasonal part-time help at an exhaustive rate. There's probably 3 to 4 bodies in there that are working anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 hours a year to process the number of requests that we have in there. And just this year, about a month and a half ago, we were told by the U.S. Marshal Service that they're suspending their assistance to us at the county to provide extraditions on the east side of the country, I think east of the Mississippi. So it compounds our budget request. You'll see that in other line items later, but mostly for the personnel request is managing the workload in there. It's just become exhaustive.
okay.
And that's a pay grade D, so $12.90 an hour is what it would start at. Within the jail budget, let's go to vehicles next. I've got 3 requests for vehicles. 2 are the transit vans that we would utilize for inmate transport within the county as well as within our interagency transport between Spokane and Montana. And those vehicles are valued at $39,000 each. 2 of them what we're requesting because our current fleet's approaching $150,000 on those vehicles. We have 2 that are at $130,000, and the other ones are higher than that. So by the time this budget does get approved, if it does, they'll be at $150,000. The safety factor involved in that is you've got 10+ inmates on the highway anywhere between here and both state lines. We also go north and south, and those vans are also utilized going down to the state hospital and just the risk involved with unreliable vehicles breaking down on the road, for having that many inmates on board with one or two deputies presents a risk. We're also asking for a Ford Expedition valued at $42,000 for the build. Same reason, that one has 171,000 miles, and that one's used a lot for single inmate transport. They're generally higher risk, going to Blackfoot or Orfino, long distance transport, so the mileage is high because that's most of those trips. And back into the jail, our Captain Holochek alluded to it earlier, the major offset in our B budget request is because of the medical contract increase, based on the CPI, as well as the food service contract. Each of those is roughly around 40,000 increase for this year based on that CPI.
I might emphasize that the statute says that the county shall transport these mentally ill to the state hospitals. It doesn't say the sheriff, but traditionally the sheriff has always done it. And we tried to get a bill through the Sheriff's Association, tried to get a bill into the legislature this year that would allow or require the health and welfare people's transports, unless they're criminals, actually criminals in the facilities. So it didn't get very far in the legislature. And the state necessarily doesn't want the state to be responsible for anything else.
Not sure how much the state wants to be responsible for, period.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think when we looked at it, we were preparing for the legislation this year, we were averaging at least one trip a week to the state hospital. So it's a significant impact, not only on vehicles, but also on their staff.
Okay. So is that it?
Is that all you got, Andy?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
Professional standards, well, investigations and professional standards division. I don't really have a lot of significant increases for the professional standards side of the house, but for investigations, I would start off mirroring what Captain Street had talked about for the 8207, the telephone line item. If our request for the cell phone purchase and the admin line item is approved, we could remove the $12,672 from request from the detectives division line item, so that it touches both sides there. As far as priorities go in our A budget, I do have 2 personnel requests that are priorities for us. The first one being the background detective. And that background detective, I think it's pretty obvious to everybody to know we're getting a lot of applications, we're dealing with a lot of candidates, the attrition rate is high. And so with that, we continue to see a lot more candidates coming through, and we deal with a lot of backgrounds. And so I have 2 full-time background positions right now. We had in the past 2 full-time and 2 part-time positions. Those part-time people had basically retired from their part-time jobs, and right now we have a temporary position in there for 90 days that's helping. We've used people that have been on sick leave, FMLA time, or when they're coming back light duty, but I don't have a position to take over those 2 part-time positions that we used to have. So I need that 3rd position to come in and be able to assist, especially considering the high number of background investigations that we continue to see. In 2017, we had they completed 176 backgrounds, but in 2018 that number rose to 219, and our current numbers right now, we're seeing an increase in that. We still have, probably about 10 positions that we're anticipating for patrol that need to be filled here during the summertime. So it's just more and more work, and the 2 guys need some assistance in there. And the other position is the administrative assistant for detectives. There was a position in detectives in the past that did both crime analysis and some administrative assistant work, and that position is gone from detectives. I do have the crime analyst person that is hired that will be taking on that assignment, but it will be working over on the professional standards side of the house. And so this person, the administrative assistant for the detectives, would be able to handle all of the administrative duties that the detectives are currently doing right now themselves. To give you an example, we had a sergeant for a couple hours who was working on payroll, and we probably could be doing different things, but we could use them for a number of the more administrative tasks that the detectives do otherwise. So that would be a priority position for us as well. I move on to the B budget. And the B budget, we've got a 8516, the computer software maintenance. There's a $9,000 request there. That's actually a $6,000 increase to that line item. And that $6,000 is an annual licensing or subscription to Leads Online. And that's a program that helps us to be able to, we used it for a free trial, and we're actually able to use that program to locate people that we were looking for across the country, and also to locate, recover stolen property that can be located across the country for other agencies that use Leads Online. And just in that 30-day trial version that we used, we did recover several items of stolen property from all unrelated thefts that were resolved that were Kootenai County cases. One being a firearm, and all the property got returned to the owners. And so not only were we able to locate suspects, but also witnesses that we needed to interview for crimes as well. So it's been a useful tool in that 30 days that we were able to utilize it.
What's that called again, Police Online?
Leads Online. And then in the C budget, I went to our capital equipment request for vehicles. We were requesting 4 vehicles. However, in light of trying to give a little bit here, we can probably go with 2 vehicles if.
What about the trickle down? If patrol were to get 15, would that open some up for detectives?
Unless the 15 doesn't, getting 15 leaves other numbers that was in their original 37 requests still out in the field. So if there are some trickle down, it can help, but I don't know how many that.
Yeah, we're still trying to train. We've got a couple of deputies that are in the older Crown Victoria, the LTD sedans. And so we would trickle down our Explorer SUVs down to those guys. And then, the last time I inquired, I think we're sitting in the low 20s that are gonna exceed 100,000 this year, during this budget year. So if there are gonna be any hand-me-downs, they'll be 100,000 mile and over vehicles.
Well, what kind of mileage do detectives put on?
I don't have that information handy on our request.
Well, we can deal with it during
I
fleet.
know it's available in the vehicle
Fleet.
review.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they drive all over the county interviewing witnesses and suspects and responding. And the only other thing is another A budget item is the on-call pay. It's a $8,760 item that would kind of help us be a little more equal with our competitors in the field, both private and law enforcement organizations that provide on-call pay. That would be for the detective that is the person who will be called out for whatever 24/7, and that person is expected to be available within a certain area, of the county, and able to respond at a moment's notice during an event. So that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioners, Captain Smart is actually at training today, and so we're all going to take a little whack at covering his division for him, and he'll never leave again for a budget meeting after this, I'm sure. When he hears some of the highlights in his division, in the civil division, the big ticket item there is a new software package that we think is critical for bringing efficiency to the system. A few years ago, we had an audit from the auditor's office in civil, and one of the things that they pointed out was that we're literally sometimes hand calculating percentages and fees and things like that, and we're also entering items into 3 different programs that don't talk to each other. Extremely inefficient. It takes us, for every writ we process, It takes about 30 minutes to do the entries. And of course, when you're doing it multiple times, there's always a chance for error.
Isn't this software program you want already being utilized in southern Idaho?
It is. Ada County is using it.
And they're finding real efficiencies.
Real efficiencies. What used to take 30 minutes is taking them now 5 to do these entries, and they're doing it one time.
Because you don't have to jump out and use a calculator, and then
Right.
use QuickBooks, and then
Right.
transfer. I mean, am I on track there?
You're right on track.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, when I flew back from Boise 2 weeks ago, they were coming back from civil school, and they spent an afternoon with the Ada County civil clerks, showing them how this works, and they were just in awe. It eliminates the Spellman, QuickBooks, and I know there's one other, and I'm not a Microsoft Excel. That's what they're currently entering here.
And using a calculator.
And using a calculator and calculating stuff. This does it all. Last year, our money that came in on writs went up about 12%, from about 3.6 million to about 4.1 million. So and it just seems like yesterday we just broke the $1 million mark. So I mean, that's an ongoing process. Idaho's one of like, I think, 2 states in the nation where the sheriffs have to mandate to serve writs. But this program, it's a big ticket item. We understand that, but it's $200,000 roughly. It's $199,220. Now we do expect the annual operating cost to be about $16,800, but we figure that'll be covered by the maintenance fees we won't be paying for the other 3. The thing is called soft code, and the fact that Ada County is using it, we know then it's compatible with Idaho law, which, let somebody else work out the bugs for us first.
Do we have, so that's kind of, there wouldn't really be a savings getting rid of the 3. It would just be a.
Yeah, the maintenance operation fees there would cover the maintenance operation of this, but the initial purchase of about $200,000
Sure.
for the software.
And there's an offset we can use that the attorneys talk to as a technology fee that applies. We can, for the civil portion, the criminal side we couldn't use it on, but for the civil portion, we can offset and raise some of the sheriff's fees, which would have to go through a resolution, but that can be, some of that can be blended in, probably about 25 to 30% of the overall cost of that program can be looked at over a 5-year period and blended into the sheriff's fees, so a portion of the public would pay for that.
Be user supported, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
A portion of it.
And then, does this get rid of any bodies?
No.
It would reduce the ask in the
It would
future,
reduce the
for
ask
sure.
in the future.
Well,
Odyssey
and
has really
reduce,
killed us.
and reduce the overtime
And reduce the overtime, which,
significantly.
yeah, we're dying in there.
There's multiple people involved in this, prosecutors, public defenders, all the conflict attorneys. They would have access, real-time access to where those documents and anything processed through the court system or the sheriff's serving, to know where that paperwork is, who's been served, when it's been returned. If it's recalled, notifications would happen a lot faster. We've gotten a lot of good response from them on the onboarding of that program. We tried to get them to share the cost of their budgets too, and they weren't quite on that yet, but we're hoping to have that in the future.
Okay. Of the 3, there's 3 new programs that IT has in their budget. Are any one of those, are you willing to give up any one of those to get this one?
Which programs are that?
Which are they?
Oh, help me out.
I think
I just read them.
IT took one of our software proposals. It was very expensive, like
Yeah, and actually, I think I have it on their summary.
Software.
I think they're under
Yeah, I don't know what,
programs.
IT put in there, but.
Is it the Agency 360 training software? Is that what you're looking at?
Let's see. Nope, it was a different one. So let me think about if it's, Bomgar Remote Support Solution, Dual Shield Advanced Authentication, and then the Mobile Arrest Form, Spillman module.
Yeah, I don't know, they didn't consult with us on those.
Okay.
That's probably a question for IT.
That's probably a question for IT, yeah. Maybe James
These
and
are-
I need to get together.
These are open IT sheriff items?
Yes.
Yes. So I have questions out to James
Okay, good.
on both of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
Make
he's.
sure we're not
What were the 3
duplicating.
programs again, Leslie?
So
It's
it's
right
up there, Bomgar Remote Support, DeepNet Dual Authentication, and then the Mobile Arrest Form, Spillman.
I mean, I'm remotely familiar with that, what she's got there on the mobile arrest, and that's a nice to have. But I would have to say, based on what I know, you know, relative to that soft code program, the difference between that and what Boise's using, or what we're doing now and what soft code is, what we're doing now is like doing your wash with a hand washer.
Right.
And what soft code is doing it with a modern day washing machine.
Sure.
And so it's, I'd say it's a pretty necessary program if we wanna move ahead in the future. Or at least take some of the burden off the people, but it's
They're just getting
unnecessary.
burned out with overtime. Mike, Bill's absolutely right.
Sure.
Can we move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna tackle some of the 911 stuff, and Matt and Andy are gonna help me with this, but probably in the non-dedicated fund, the biggest increase we'll see there is training, but that goes back to the mandated post-training and the mandated ongoing 40 hours every 2 years for each employee training. So those are the biggest aspects of that. As far as the dedicated fund, the E911 dollars, the 124 budget, we're gonna let Colin speak to that because that's really his budget. Colin.
Commissioners, I can highlight, in the 124 enhanced fund budget, some of the big pointers on the operations budget is, increase on line item 8199. There's, roughly a $29,000 increase, in some small services, but the main increase is on our QA services for, call queuing. So we use, a determinate dispatch, which we used to only do medical and fire calls. We've added the police protocol, and now we're adding that protocol being QA'd by an outside auditor. They listen to the calls and make sure the dispatchers are doing it as the protocol, and they're scored up based on their call. So that's the increase there. A large decrease in 8210. We're seeing as part of our 10-year contract with Motorola and Ada County for our radio access fees. This is, the first year was the big year. We'll level out kind of at this point over the next 9 years. In operations, that's about it for the highlights on the capital side. As with the enhanced fund is usually project large. Most of the projects are tied to reconfiguration of the dispatch room to add 3 new positions. So the purchase of furniture, so half of the furniture cost is split into the non-dedicated fund. That's a large capital project request there. The rest of it is in the enhanced fund, along with a CAD computer refresh. The computers are up due for a refresh. We tried to go an additional year and ran into some extra problems, so that definitely needs to be done this year. In addition to the additional PCs for the new positions if the reconfiguration is approved. The other large ask is a replacement of our 911 phone system. Our current 911 phone answering system is at 7 operating years, which is beyond typical IT refresh, which is all what it's all made of, is IT components. The vendor is pushing us to asking that if we would like to refresh, we're looking to either refresh or replace it with a whole brand new system. It's roughly the same cost to do either. So we're investigating the different types of systems and options that are out there. This is a large ask and to cover our basis of option of either going standalone or joining another system. There's a lot of infrastructure costs that comes along with that to set it up. So those are the major pointers and major asks.
Any general fund dollars in that 650?
No, that is purely 100% enhanced fee, exactly what the dedicated fund is for.
And that fund is well funded.
Sure.
Yeah, there's always seems to be plenty of money in that fund. But that's, in fact, when that fund was originally set up, when the statutes were originally passed, that was the first side it was supposed to be for, was for 911 phone systems. So I mean, like Colin said, that is the epitome of what that's supposed to be used for.
Yeah.
And the other large ask in that line item is the radio console position add. That is to make the, if the additional 3 positions is added, that's to make them fully functional with a radio console. They would only be able to take calls, which we're dual purpose in the dispatch center, so they both take calls and dispatch on the radio at each position. So those are the major pointers and asks in the enhanced budget.
Colin, quick question.
Yes.
Who manufactures the voice system, E3 911?
Currently, our system is in Trotto. They were bought by West, so West Safety Services is the one that we have now. We're looking both at them. There's a system called CallWorks which Motorola recently bought. We are looking at them or Vesta, which interestingly Motorola also purchased. They're another system, so there's a couple other vendors out there, and we're looking at all of them.
Now, are these automatic call distribution systems?
They have that function, but built into them, all of them do. They have some form or function. We're right on the edge of being a dispatch center that can actually take advantage of that type of system. A lot of the cost and complexities of it is tying into the telco 911 system and getting anti-alley data and stuff like that. So that's where the mapping modules that come with it to map the caller location and stuff like that, that's all built into that whole 911 phone system.
Thank you.
Wow, Chris, I'm impressed you can actually understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, I used to work with ACD.
Hey,
With
Colin,
the
I have
airline.
one quick question on 8199, was that a component of Pro QA that you were talking about there on that $29,000?
It is a component of Pro QA, so that is the QAing of the Pro QA calls by an outside service.
Okay, got it.
Is that statutorily required?
It is not statutorily required, no.
But I'll tell you what, we first went into Pro QA with FireMed, and they asked for us to go into this, and it works so well. It prompts the right questions, and it reduces the errors from the call takers. That after a couple of years we tried it.
So I was over there at the 911 center when we implemented that, and so this company that Colin's referring to is called National Q, and what they do is they'll review hundreds of 911 calls that the call taker takes over the phone, so they can remote in and listen. They can look at the script, listen to the call taker, and make sure that they're asking the questions in the right order and how they're supposed to be asking, and that they're choosing the correct chief complaint, whether it's police, fire, or medical. And when I was over there, we elected to contract with National Q in lieu of trying to hire or put a staffer in there to do all the queuing of the calls, because that is the industry standard, is to do quality assurance on those calls to make sure that the dispatchers and call takers are doing it correctly. And it was less expensive to contract than it was to hire somebody to put in that position. And then when we went ahead and purchased the police module, and that was because I think it was 94.6% or 96.4, I can't remember the numbers, but in the high 90s, we had a high percentage of police calls we were handling. So we had acquired this software for fire and medical, but yet 95-ish% of our calls are law calls. And so we implemented this structured call taking protocol for police calls, and then this is the quality assurance component of that.
Okay.
Is what they're asking for.
Commissioners, obviously, our #1 priority hasn't changed, and that's compensation for our staff. We know that that's pending HR's work, and so his crew is doing a job on that one. So I guess I think according to our agenda, we were scheduled for a break and come back for Q&A for the next hour. But that was your call, Commissioners.
Sure, there's one more component to Kevin Smart's with
Okay, very
Post
good.
Falls driver's license.
Oh, very good.
You wanna speak to that? Or
No, go ahead.
A couple of years ago, we opened up the Post Falls satellite office with the intent of meeting the needs of the county. We haven't asked for any additional staffing. Since that we asked for an original amount, it was brought on in segments. We had initial ask of 4 more, we got 2, and then they added 2 more a couple of years ago, or a year ago. With that, there was only staffing at the supervision level, an assistant placed over in Post Falls. And we had a regular supervisor at the Coeur d'Alene office, an assistant at the Coeur d'Alene office. The intent was for that supervisor to be over at the Post Falls office a couple times a week. That's never materialized. The workload, the volume, you know, with attrition, retraining, she's just never been able to get over there. We're asking to convert the assistant position at Post Falls to a supervisory position. It's $1 more from where she's at right now, from top pay as an assistant to lowest pay as a supervisor. And then there's an ask to convert somebody from a lower rank to that assistant as well, about another 40 cents for that one.
And then would you have to backfill that?
No, we're not asking for any new positions, they're just converting the people there to match the actual duties they're doing.
It's paying what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, staff,
That's it.
anything else? Any other highlights?
I will just mention that, the 911 ops also has a personnel change request for some holiday buyback in that particular
correct.
area. Yeah.
We funded that in the past out of salary salaries as well. In fact, you'll see that, and I think in the patrols too. But I'm trying to be more accurate in our budgeting and show where those actual expenses are coming from.
What's the downside if holiday buyback is not approved?
Yeah, well, if we don't buy it back, then we have people wanting to take time off, and usually we have to backfill with overtime.
Okay.
So, you know, if everything's perfect, we'd have enough people on, and we
Right.
just leave and have the empty spot, but we're not all that perfect.
Some of the bean counters in the past have also spoke to the liability for the county carrying the dollars on the books if we can't get our time off,
Right.
so.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean your bean counters.
It's all right.
Okay, so what we're looking at here before we break, what are we looking at here for numbers for total? You're showing a 1.3 mil?
What
Salary?
am I looking at? So this is for new positions, the total annual impact
Okay.
for the new positions, and then the total annual impact for the position changes. So absolute total,
It's gonna be around 2 something.
and this does not include matrix moves. We're still working on those.
Okay, so that's the increase. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. All right.
It
What-
does, I just want to
I'm
point
sorry.
out though, that does include a pretty healthy increase in the jail overtime budget. A very healthy increase. Sorry, John.
Yeah,
Hmm.
400.
It's all right.
So you wanna take a break until, it's 1:55, take a break until 2:05?
Sure.
10-minute break? Okay, let's go.
Perfect.
So we are now in recess until 5 minutes after 2. Okay, everyone. Our recess is officially over. We're resuming our 2020 Sheriff's Budget review. It is now, by the way, 2:05 p.m. and off we go. So turning to my co-commissioners, questions, concerns?
So if we're ready just to kind of dive in, and we won't
Sure.
get it all done today, but I'm happy to.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
But before we dive,
go
Sure.
right ahead.
one of my concerns, and this is kind of an overarching thing, is I am concerned, I have heard for at least 2 years that sworn and unsworn staff, their pay is not where it should be, and it's driving good people away from the department, which costs us enormously. And, you know, it's not quite this simple. It's not even almost this simple. But before we buy another gun or another car, I want to see that dealt with. So that is not something that comes up year after year after year. And I'm willing to make those hard choices as one commissioner. That's all.
You've
May I
never heard
respond?
that before, have you?
May I respond?
Please.
Okay, Commissioner, and I appreciate your stance on that, but we have to do business today, and yeah, I agree. I've been preaching that one for the last 12 years, and I've only been sheriff for 6, so, you know, we recognize that it costs us a whole lot more money than retaining people, and that's a fact of life. But we also have to do business today, and we have to do business next, you know, October and November and December and ongoing. So we still have to put, you know, gas in those cars, and we still have to investigate those crimes. And you know, unfortunately, we're not in a business that we think will be unemployed due to a lack of business. We'll always have customers out there, and it's and as our population grows, those demands on our services grow as well. And so I agree with you that there's some things we can probably live without if we can boost some wages. And we've given up cars, we've given up extra personnel in years past to do that, but it never seems to be enough. But I still can't ignore the fact that we still have to provide the services that we're required to provide to the public in this county.
Nobody's saying you don't. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this needs to be dealt with, and I'm prepared to deal with it this year, even if it's nasty and tough.
And I appreciate that.
So what you're saying is that's your number one priority?
Number one.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that we can't do 2 and 3. You know, there's a lot of good stuff here, and there's some stuff that I would love to go, yeah. But right now, I picked out about a no. And it will impact how we provide services, I know that. But if we lose more of these men and women with your office that are highly trained and experienced and vetted, God, I talked to somebody the other day in background investigations, and they went, oh, everybody in the world has either been on pot or cocaine or has a minor felony.
Our average is about 1%.
I know.
We're able to successfully hire from the application process through. And I mean, and I don't mean to digress, but when you drive down the street and McDonald's is hiring people $11.50 an hour.
You bet.
And my clerks are just barely over that. Yeah, granted, they get some benefits too, but they don't have to pass a background to work at McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a huge issue for all of us, and I don't disagree.
I got one anecdote there, because we just looked at it. Since 2015, and this is from the sheriff's figures, we've handled 7,223 applications in conjunction with HR2. That doesn't mean we did a background on it.
Yeah.
But out of those 7,223, I believe we got about 115 or 120 people. So
Tough stuff.
turnovers,
Special group.
and
Tough.
quality
Right.
of applicants.
I understand.
Okay. Sylvia, did you want to jump in here before we move on?
No, I'm good.
I thought I'd ask
I
our
don't have
HR director.
any rates yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Or market.
Okay, Leslie?
I'm just ready to go?
Yeah, that's good.
Or, so, I figure I try to tackle some, bigger ones than the littler ones, so can we go to sheriff, elected official, department admin?
Sure.
So some of them, are probably already gonna be asked and answered, but I just wanna make sure that it's clear. 7005, temporary seasonal, is that something that you already said, cause this is under your office, isn't it?
It is, and honestly, we use very little temporary seasonal. What that has done in the past is we've taken out the admin budget to help cover some of the seasonal background people.
Okay.
If we have to bring in somebody to do that, when we had, we were without our bill payer, and you know, we had some salaries there because we were in a hole, but we brought back the retired bill payer to pay for that on a short-term basis, and so that's what that line item is for.
Okay. Personnel allocation expense. So we touched a little bit on that, and this is different than the lateral bonuses. Is this the part-time HR assistant?
That is the new personnel technician.
Okay.
Part-time.
They have part-time.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Dena.
So it's 19.5 hours a week, so that's no per C, no benefits.
Okay.
Got it.
Alright, let's see here, transcripts, $79.75. Didn't budget last year, but it's $1,000 this year, just curious.
We found that doing the internal investigations, things like that, a lot of times the attorneys want transcripts of reported interviews,
Okay.
and so we have to farm those out for those transcripts.
And on criminal ones too.
And some criminal ones, but that's usually covered in.
And those are
Yeah.
expensive, those are expensive.
And they are expensive.
Sure.
And Commissioner, this is also because we did add the professional standards division is new to our organization. And so that increase will get moved over to that. I've been working with Dena for a while since we developed that to put a new work set in for professional standards. And that's, as the sheriff said, related to the internal investigations, so.
Okay.
Recruiting expense?
Well, as you know, we have used HR's budgeted items, and Mr. Phillips, I don't remember if you were here or not when we first started going after all the positions for the jail.
Yes.
We, you know, the board was generous enough to fund through HR some recruiting expenses, and this is everything from developing the videos to business cards that say we were hiring that I hand out at airports, to TSA staff, to we even did a test in Kansas at Leavenworth, testing for detention deputies with military people coming out. We took an entire crew down there, did all the testing, the interviews, the whole 9 yards, right there on site. And that's what helped pay for those type of.
But my question specifically is the increase. Why the increase?
Hi, Commissioners, I can answer that for you. I did put this together. The increase is specific to doing psychological exams for the 911 dispatchers. And so that was something we had done in the past, and because they have to go to post, we needed to do that again as part of the post requirements. So what we did is budget for 5 of those for the year, and they're $500 a piece to do a psychological evaluation on the new hires.
Why wouldn't that be under 911?
Because the human resources under that.
Yeah, we do all of our onboarding expenses are all coded to this, for all of our employees are all coded to that recruiting and hiring expenses.
Dena, would you mind
throughout
just
the
making a
agency.
notation on that line?
Sure.
Psych exams. This way, if we revisit something, we know what we're looking at,
Sure.
so we're not going over the same stuff over and over.
Chris,
Commissioner Duncan.
I'm having a hard time hearing because people are
Oh,
talking in the
okay.
background
All right.
here. And I'm already hard of hearing, so.
Okay.
Commissioner Duncan, just for your knowledge, we used to have those divided out by division, and it was a nightmare bookkeeping wise. We're like, well, all of human resources for the sheriff's office is gonna come through admin. Let's put the budget under admin, so we consolidated all those a few years
Got it.
ago.
Okay, and you know, this is my first time,
No,
so
and
I
that's why-
apologize for getting into the weeds
No,
and.
but I can provide you some historical background.
Okay,
So,
great.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Whatever you see in there, let me know, cause it
Yeah.
might be something different.
I'm looking at, you guys have already addressed this, but it bears going over 80, because it is such a substantial, exactly, that one, 8207 telephone. And there was some talk of being able to alleviate that, is that with cell phones? Did I get that right?
no, Commissioner, the idea is here is we would be able to eliminate, some of the detectives' cell phone budget if this one was approved here, because of it's all encompassing. And because it's under the administration, that line item also covers our air cards, communications for all the computers in the cars, and would allow us to eliminate or minimize the number of cameras we have to buy for deputies in the field to document incidents in the field, crimes and whatnot, because they could use the cameras for those as well. So that's for the individually issued cell phones, so we don't end up with their personal cell phones being subpoenaed or held as evidence and things of that nature.
So
Can I
how,
comment a little
go
bit
ahead.
more on that too, just to follow up what the sheriff said? We're getting pushed into a corner on this. You know, Matt and I have talked quite a bit about it, but you know, Coeur d'Alene City has already done it. I think Spokane City either has done it or is going to do it. ISP has done it. Idaho State Police, at least that's my understanding. And the problem is, we have historically been, you know, letting people use their own cell phones for police work, and it's finally caught up to us because the defense lawyers are, you know, they've gotten smart about subpoenaing them. And so the question remains, even though it's a big dollar item, and how fair is it to, you know, ask people to use their own cell phone for work stuff? I know there's a little bit of a bleed over, but that's basically the problem. Sooner or later, it's gonna become the cost of doing business.
And just to add to that, 10 years ago, ICRIM, Dave Sasser, who was the attorney for ICRIM, told me then, he goes, you need to get away from personal use cell phones at work. You need to use issue cell phones, just for this reason. And what he predicted.
Yeah, but what's capturing my attention though is we're looking at about 150% increase.
Well, that's because we're gonna have to issue all those cell phones and then the ongoing cost. You're right, you're absolutely right about the amount. What we've used out of that line item before is, we do have some department issued cell phones. I personally won't use my personal cell phone for work. I use my county cell phone. But it also pays for all those air cards and those connections for all the laptops that the guys have in their cars, all the computers in the cars. We're hooked through Verizon. That's how we were able to share data, is that phone hooked up.
So, I'm sorry, Leslie.
Oh, I was just saying, so is there gonna be any savings if every deputy has a cell phone? Is there gonna be any crossover where now we can?
Yeah, like I said, you know, some of those are getting stipends. Some of them have a stipend where they pick up
Okay.
$15, $20 a month.
$35
$35
a month for
For
every
those-
person who has a cell phone stipend, that would go out.
That would go away.
Okay.
So there would be some savings there.
Okay, and is that in the same line item?
That's not figured into this line item though, is it?
No, it's not.
What I'm wrestling with is when we spent the 31,000 last year, where did that go?
That went to pay for those air cards for the computers
Okay,
and for those few county issued cell phones.
so how many people were affected?
We're heading out. Well,
In 2019, we spent 31,000, so if we're gonna spend 87, or almost 88,000,
right.
there's
It's about
gotta,
a $56,000 difference, 55 and change.
and what makes that up?
That's the individual issued cell phones. These people were using their own cell phones without a stipend. But many of them weren't.
Okay.
So if, you know, the phones are almost a wash, that's almost a freebie.
Right.
But it's a service for those phones. Now that 31,000,
There you go, go
the
ahead.
31,000 went to a few county issued cell phones, but the vast majority of that paid for the connection for the computers, so we could share, so, you know, we have that link to 911 and, you know, dispatch, and all that stuff. It's the air cards that make the computers work in the cars.
And Commissioner Filius, I think on the, did I jump in front of you?
No, no.
I think one of the first question you had is there gonna be any offset to that 56,000? And the answer is yes, I believe, because 6,000, we have a request for 6,000 in the patrol budget for cameras. And we could cut that request, thereby reducing the overall request. We can cut that by 6 because the deputies would use their now they're issued cell phone and just take pictures of crime scenes and then upload it when they get back to the office. I believe Captain Edmondson said something similar in their detective's budget to the amount of $12,000. So there's about $18,000 that would be eliminated out of the request if this was approved.
Wonderful. Could you make a notation to that effect?
Absolutely.
On that line item, please, Dena?
Sure.
Because I know I'm gonna forget. I'll remember the 18 grand.
Okay, but in the interest of absolute transparency, I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot, but I wanna be completely honest. Some of that's one-time expense, but that $50,000 a year is an ongoing annual fee.
Right.
So, you know,
And I'm glad you brought that up. you
well,
know.
it's the truth.
Well, thank
And
you.
it shall set you free, I guess.
Or further enslave you. Yes, ma'am.
The only other thing I would say is if we can identify which
Line.
deputies, which actual
Yes,
deputies
thank you.
would receive the cell phone, then I can determine the savings for the cell phone stipends, because it's attached to the
Yeah,
the
it was pretty
employee level.
insignificant. It was only about $500,
Oh.
a month. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay,
'Cause
so,
I asked that.
$6 grand a year.
6,000, okay.
So we're not talking detention deputies, we're just mostly
No.
talking patrol
And
and.
detectives.
And detectives,
detectives.
patrol and
It's
detectives.
civil.
Got it.
Patrol, detectives, and civil.
Okay. Bill, any line items for you? Yes, Kim.
Sorry, just in reading the proposal, I did find that amount. It says based on the current cell phone expenses to include current issued cell phones, the cell phone stipend, the cost would be about the same. We are currently paying $3,317 a month for the service, and the county is paying $1,400 a year for the 4 deputies and admin assigned to patrol for cell phone stipends. So that's the total that's under
Thank you.
Lieutenant Higgins.
For issued phones and stipends?
That's what it says. Yeah, it gives the amount that if we were to purchase the 90 phones, then the monthly cost would be around $4,770. Based on current cell phone expenses, we're currently paying $3,317 a month.
Okay.
So between the cameras and stipends, we pretty much.
We wash out.
Commissioners, this is gonna end up becoming a fairly critical thing in the sense that we're asking people to use their own equipment, but I don't want anybody to get misled. This is one I think we need to come back to, and, because I came to the table thinking we were gonna spend 50 grand a year, and if there's an offset, then we need to come back and have that dialed in exactly as it should be. Because Matt, I see you're kind of raising an eyebrow a little bit too.
Well, just because it's been a while since I looked at that, so I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
So, but this is gonna be important, but I would like to come back with an absolute on that for the board,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. I'm down to 8308 Seminars and Professional Association.
Yes.
It's kind of a jump, so just curious as to what's included in there.
Well, what we did in building the training budget, commissioners, is to look at what the actual, and I don't know, Tammy, is that in here, the training?
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, there we go. What we did was, take the actual, amount that we've, determined we are going to have a need for in the plan for developing that. And so we just applied that amount over to that line item. So based on the known, training, seminar fees and professional associations that we are requesting in the admin line item, that total is carried over from that form that we used to develop it.
So how much is required and how much would like to have?
Boy, I think the sheriff and the undersheriff would need to answer that. The sheriff sits on a number of boards that he needs to attend to. So I think those are required.
I can eliminate the first one, the Myrtle Beach State Sheriff Association Presidential Conference. The State Sheriff Association, is told me they're gonna cover all that. That's $3,100.
Okay.
So we can eliminate that.
But it didn't have any budget for the 8308, for that training, so it doesn't affect that 8308 line item.
Yeah, seminar fee, that's just in the training, the general training.
It affects, yeah,
That had
Okay.
per diem, airfare and lodging.
Okay, I might get to that. Is that in this particular org set?
Not 8308.
No, not the line item, but the org set? Because it looks like a lot of your training and, airfare and stuff, well, airfare didn't go down, but some other things did for DM and, let's see, automobile rental, lodging in this org set.
And what we were trying to do is apply it directly to what we know the needs are, and I think it's just been, we haven't looked at it that closely, and that's something that, as professional standards has been put in place, the sheriff wanted me to work on training budgets, and so I'm trying to tighten those things up so that they more accurately reflect what we're doing in training.
Sure, and that's, I appreciate that, I'm fine with that, I just wanna know, like, specifically, that is for this, that is for this training, this, that's kinda what I'm getting down to, cause we have a lot of different departments who want to travel all the time.
Do you have
And
the
so-
training, the travel and training professional development worksheet available?
I don't have that in my book.
We don't normally put that in
Okay.
Okay.
the book, but we can definitely get it to you.
Okay, and I'm not.
That would help you, because it
Yes.
breaks each one of those trainings down, who we anticipate sending, and what the anticipated costs are for each
So
of
if I
those.
can get that, then I won't have to go through each org set and ask you about
Correct.
airfare and training and all that.
That's
So
exactly right.
That'll help.
that would be
And-
helpful.
And
Okay.
each division has that worksheet,
Okay.
available for their training line items, so you can see for
Great.
every area.
Okay, let's see, computer training costs $83.15.
$83.15,
Yeah, you had none for 19. And you're up to almost 57.
Oh, this is,
the crystal report,
this is
so
a crystal report.
it'll be a one-time, expense. Sorry about that, I had to read the descriptions, I can catch up. But it is a one-time expense. We have a number of people who are trained in, crystal, or who, I'm sorry, they're not trained, they have the, license to, use crystal reports, which is a data mining software that helps them build reports that'll be consistent for us for our stat building. But they have no training in how to use the program, and so, the $5,666 is the cost from the company that would come in and do the training. The benefit there is that there are other agencies that, have that ability, and we can open it up and offer it to other people so that they can benefit as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a kind of a note for the record, commissioners. One of the things we've really strived to do over the last few years is train trainers here locally, or bring training in to our area. And we use the search and rescue building commonly to bring training in. And that's really reduced our costs. Oftentimes, we're able to get free slots into those trainings because we're the host agency. And so we've really worked hard to try to hold the line on training, because we know travel's expensive.
Right.
And quite honestly, I get tired of traveling. But it's just one of those necessities, and, you know, we have to keep up with what's the newest thing in training, and just to keep our liability down. But that's one of the things we've really tried to do is have our own in-house trainers. So we send one person away to learn how to do it, and then he can train the entire agency, or bring the actual trainings here.
Okay. All right, let's see, here is the 40,000, which we already talked about, the recruiting bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be better put towards salaries?
Well, I mean, I certainly would not argue if we put it towards salaries. This was, you know, this is something we started to try to bring in good quality candidates. And we actually used some of those. We actually did a retention bonus as well. I don't know if you were aware of that, where we actually paid some guys, I think,
End up with 3 in the jail.
3 in the jail, $1,000 to start with, and $1,000 at the end of the year.
$2,500
Or
up.
$2,500.
Yeah, when we do a recruiting bonus, it's typically what, 2,500?
2,500 for laterals, and we also allowed some moving bonuses. If we had to cut part of that to put it towards wages, I'd cut the recruiting but leave the move, because sometimes that's the more expensive part. They know what they're coming to a wage, but if we can help them with their move,
Right.
I think that would be a much wiser spot.
The only difference is that it makes us very competitive with other agencies. Most other law enforcement agencies do offer some type of a bonus for either the relocation or the lateral or both. And they're much higher than what we're
I think
putting
Spokane's
together here.
$3,500 to, when you just sign them along.
I guess my concern is they're here for, we pay them all this money to move here and bonus, and then 3 years later they leave. So that's where I'm going with
We would
that.
love to stop that.
We would
Sure.
have to stop that.
So that's what I'm kinda saying, let's not pay them the money up front,
Yeah,
let's
really
put it into the
stop
matrix or
that.
something.
Yeah.
And what are we anticipating for hiring next year, next year?
Well, I looked at the board this morning and we had 20 openings today and 3 more anticipated. So
Yeah,
I mean,
have
that's just,
too.
and I mean, and that changes almost daily.
But not every one of those is eligible for a bonus.
Correct, correct,
So-
and what we put in for on this, for detention, we put in for 5 laterals and 2 relocations. For patrol, we did the same, 5 lateral and 2 relocations, and for 911, we did 2 laterals.
So I didn't do the quick math, does that total 40? Probably less, right?
40 positions?
No,
No,
$40,000.
Yes,
It's 40,000.
yes, sir. Yep, it's at 2,500 each for each position.
We're trying to break down here if you wanna look at it.
No, I'm okay. But I'm just thinking, even if we can't move the entire 40, even if it doesn't make sense, maybe we can move 20 of it over at this point. What do you
Well,
think?
I mean, to me, this is just a first look,
first
and
look.
so until Sylvia comes back, I don't know how much I'm gonna need to plug holes. I'm just looking for initial pieces of cotton to plug those.
You know,
Holes.
our recruiting bonus was particularly robust during last year simply because of the jail.
Oh, yeah.
Cause you had
without a doubt.
20-something
We
positions or
really-
Without a
whatever it
doubt.
was.
But we are doing real well recruiting from all over the country. It has been successful, but a lot of that's on the heels of the jail
Okay.
expansion.
And I believe the amount is actually only 5,000 more than what HR had provided initially last year when they got the bonuses approved. I believe it was $35,000, Sylvia, I don't know if you recall.
I don't.
You weren't here at the time,
That
but
sounds familiar.
I think it was $35,000 to begin with.
Okay.
But that did include the 3 retention bonuses for detention. So, you know, we were working off of having that 35,000 in last year's budget, although it wasn't in ours.
It was in HR's.
It wasn't a budgetary item in the budget planning process, but it was a mid-year ask that Sky Reynolds made, and it was approved at that time.
And again, I guess to your point, Leslie, if we, you know, with HR conducting a review of the whole salary structure, if that changes, then the necessity for the retention and the hiring bonuses basically diminishes. Might not go to 0, but at least maybe we can take some money.
It's gonna change.
It could change, yeah.
Yeah.
And FYI, these bonuses don't have any loading component to them, it's just
That's
flat
true,
bonus
good
amount.
point.
Right.
Okay, what else?
Alright, let's see. Next org set would be Sheriff Civil. And then the first one I have is the 7,700, the personnel allocation expense. I didn't write notes when you guys were giving us our overview, so is that,
Should be overtime.
is it, okay.
Now, we think we can reduce that if the software program is.
Correct.
We can reduce that significantly if the software program is approved. We can start doing 6 items in an hour, we used to,
Mhm.
you know.
Soft
take
code?
just 2.
Soft
Soft
code.
code, yeah. That's the soft code.
Thank you, Dena.
All right, next one I have is 8207, the telephones. We talked about this would go down if the admin was approved, is that correct?
You're talking about the proposal for the cell phone?
Yes.
Because I think these cover the air cards for them.
Okay.
I would have to go back and calculate, I think they're $45 a piece per month.
Okay, it's just a $2,400 increase, so that's just where I'm wondering where
Yeah.
that's coming from.
Then you're probably correct, that would probably take, if the overall cell phone proposal goes
It
through.
is, yeah, there's five phones.
Yeah,
Smart
5 phones,
yeah.
yeah, that's about right.
Huh?
Let's see. Seminars and professional associations again, 8308. And the computer user training costs, hold on, did I just go backwards? No, I think, yeah. So if you have those details for me, then that would be easier. But this is another 5,700 user training, so is this a different program than the
That
Crystal?
can go away if SOC code is approved, that is
Okay.
Spillman module
Okay.
upgrade training, which we have to look at doing if SOC code wasn't approved.
Okay, good. Dena's picking it up too.
Okay.
Andy, is that the civil module?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and then the vehicles, we already talked about trickling those down. That one down. Yes, it is. Okay. I just have, it looks like one question under animal control org set, and that's a $1,800 weapons self-defense equipment that hasn't been budgeted in the past.
Stand by.
No worries.
What's the,
Animal control.
I think that.
8060.
8060?
So 8060, that is, increase due to the need to replace 2 expired ballistic vests. Our
Okay.
animal control officers, deal with the public just like our patrol deputies, and they don't carry wet firearms, but they carry
Sure.
taser and OC spray. This is just to provide them with ballistic protection. Because some of the most unruly people that we deal with are animal control related.
Right,
So,
yeah. Well, and I imagine you have DV issues that you need to have animal control out there to secure.
TV issues,
Yeah.
the neighbor's dog killed my chickens issues.
Right.
I'm gonna go kill the neighbor's dog type issues, yes, those type of things.
Okay, veterinary services, you're picking, adding 7,000.
That is, just to reflect the 3-year trend, just to mirror the, actual expenses.
Are we adding a dog?
We added a dog, but this is
This
not,
would be under this
this
work
is
set.
under the veterinary care for animals we pick up.
Oh.
So injured animals, hit by a car, things of that nature, we have to take them to a vet. And those 24-hour emergency vet places are not cheap. And like Andy said, our actual 3-year average was $29,065. So we only asked for a $7,000 increase to 28.
Okay.
That's a particularly frustrating one because, that can come out of the blue too. We've had deals where there's been, for example, neglected horses and cattle, and that ran the budget way into the red on years gone by, so unfortunately it's a necessary item. It could happen tomorrow.
Yeah, you have one horse abuse case with, 20 horses that you have to shelter in the fair and get vet service that can clean out your
Yeah,
budget pretty quick.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
I am ready to go on to patrol, Hayden,
Okay.
and there's a staff, increase. So are they adding? Because it didn't look like their revenue was going up at all.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
Matt will be there in 2 weeks from tomorrow to present at the Hayden City Council meeting the findings of the committee and to the entire council. And then they will make the decision whether or not to move forward with taking it to the voters in November. And if that happens, then we'll see an increase in our revenue and we'll add staff as well.
Okay.
So it's one of those things we wanted to kind of get a place marker for it.
Sure.
But we don't know yet until the council takes action.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured, but I wanted to make sure. Is it a possibility that the agreement could be if they have their car and their deputy, that they're not called off if we have another emergency in the county?
Would we not call it? Maybe. Kind of depends on where it is and
Sure.
how big it is. I mean, if we had an injury accident, 95 and 53, they're the closest car. We're actually, obviously, we're gonna send them.
Yeah.
It's you try to get back into the city as quick as possible. You know, we have to prioritize those calls for service. And that's been a wonderful relationship we have with Hayden, because they understand that, you know, we have to take care of emergency situations. I mean, if it's the barking dog call,
Right.
it'll wait.
Yeah, no,
But,
get
but those
that.
emergency situations, you know, accidents, domestic violence, you know, something like that, it's just whoever's closest.
Okay.
Matt, did they just buy another car? Didn't we just talk about Hayden?
It's in this current.
It's in the budget,
Yeah.
remember that?
All right.
Were you gonna look at line item 7700, personnel allocation?
For which org set?
What were we just on?
We were just on Hayden, Patrol Ops Hayden.
All right, go ahead. No, I'm sorry, keep going.
Okay. So now I am down to, let me see here. Don't think I had any questions for OHV, or maybe I didn't get to them yet. No.
It's a
okay.
pretty sparse budget, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
okay.
think that's partially grant funded too.
Sure.
It's, mostly it's all dedicated in grant.
Right.
Designated, yeah, that comes from $1 from every OHV sticker sold,
Right.
comes back to the sheriff's office's dedicated fund. Now, next year, we should see a pretty substantial increase in that fund, because as of July 1st, out-of-staters must have an out-of-state OHV registration sticker to operate here. It'll be run similar to what we have now here in Idaho, but as many of Washingtonians as we say come over here to ride, we should see some substantial increase in that revenue in that line item.
Good.
So,
Good. Okay, so now Sheriff Patrol Ops. And there's,
You're on.
yeah, 7003,
And
regular
what's this under?
staff. I'm sorry, it's the Patrol Ops, it's the 605-.3. Trying to see if that you've already covered
So that's current
this.
expense,
Okay,
for personnel, so that could be, 720,
okay,
Okay,
could be mid-year changes, but it's what's in our current expense.
okay.
all right, and then now the 7,700 there.
Okay, so then over to personnel, that's the, special duty pay,
Oh, okay,
$100 an hour for the, identified positions here.
Yep.
right. Okay. And then the uniforms you guys already talked about. And I had a question on the motor fuels, lubricants, vehicle maintenance expenses. That's just to take care of patrol cars, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Civil, jail, detectives all have their own line items for those.
gotcha, that's what I thought. Okay,
8061,
Oh, Commissioner, if I can add to that?
Yes.
Part of that is, and we're gonna change this next year, I think, we haven't talked to Dena yet, that also covers the car washes. You know, we lost the ability to wash cars on site, the health district shut us down there, because we don't have water oil separators in our storm drains.
okay.
So we have since contracted with Metro Wash, and we have unlimited washes at $1,000 a month, which is actually a pretty good deal in the big picture of much muddy, dirty roads that we drive on. But we've broken that down based upon number of vehicles, 2% of total. So in that line item also includes their car wash fees.
Okay,
for the year.
perfect. So yes, let's go to 1661, 8060, 8061.
Neely, you wanna start with 8060 first, 860?
Mm-hmm.
So, the breakdown of that increase is we're, needing to purchase 20, ballistic vests at the tune of $17,720. 10 tasers for $14,630. 15 Glock handguns. Let's see, 15 Colt AR, 15 patrol rifles. 8 Remington shotguns. Let's see, 15 ballistic vest external plates and carriers. So these are like an active shooter response. So an external plate carrier with hard plates in it instead of the soft body armor. 15 ballistic helmets. This is a kind of a carryover to a project that we were taking care of this budget year. This is kind of like the second half of that, because we were able to buy some of that in this current budget year. 5 red dot sights to be used to outfit the remaining number of patrol deputies for the optics for their handguns, and 10 gas masks for our crowd control team.
On the actual, if I may,
Yeah,
on the actual firearms, are those new or are those replacement?
The, yes, let's see, so the 15 Glock handguns.
What? Yes?
Yes, totally.
That's an either or.
Well, on the 15 Glock handguns that I mentioned for $7,200, the handguns we'll use to replace those that have been retired over the past 4 years, as well as replace ones that are no longer serviceable.
Okay, now,
And,
let me stop you there. What constitutes the criteria for retirement?
I can help with that. Some of the, you know, if they're broken beyond reasonable repair, but you remember that you approve when an officer retires, that they receive their handgun, you know, pursuant to the statute. Well, we start taking them out of stock, we gotta replace those.
Yeah, but you're not having that many retirements.
No, but we do have those weapons that start to wear, and the manufacturer recommends that we replace them.
Well, my understanding is, you have an armorer on staff?
We have several.
Okay. That Glock handguns are good for between 50 and 150,000 rounds before they start showing significant wear and tear, and oftentimes that's little things like a spring or something that can be easily replaced.
Well, I'm not one of the armorers, so I'll say yes.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that as well. I know that it's, you know, I kind of share the same philosophy with you, and then what I've been told is it is the amount of ammunition that the law enforcement puts through takes a significant toll. And then, but our armorers do on an annual basis inspect and replace springs and firing.
Tell me, how many rounds do they use per year, say, on qualifications and practice?
I don't know, but we invited the previous board out to our SWAT training day, and in 3 hours, I think they shot up 500 rounds.
That's not a typical day. That's not a typical day.
Yeah, I don't know the answer for you.
The answer is that it depends. The SWAT guys just eat ammo like crazy.
I understand, but your
Yeah.
patrol deputies don't.
The patrol deputies qualify, they mandatorily qualify twice a year, and then there's other trainings, I don't know, to the tune, and they're not qualifications, they're just trainings. But in those trainings, again, you know, the qualification is 40 rounds.
Twice a year.
Twice a year. Otherwise, the training, it can vary, you know, in the amount of rounds they use for the training. I don't think we have now, or we've ever had a gun that's gone 50,000 or 150,000 rounds. We never, ever, I don't think in a career unless you're on a SWAT team, you shoot that much.
Right.
The old standard used to be, and I don't know what it is now, but typical life of a service weapon was 10 years. Most departments would you know, we've gone a lot longer than that, but most departments would, you know, go to a different weapon. After 10 years of service, they would plan on replacement as part of a 10-year plan. And so, again, relative to what Matt has laid out here, you know, if you want a little bit more research on that, we can do it. But
I'd appreciate it, because I don't pretend to be an expert, but I'm an arm's length expert, let me put it that way. Got a lot of experience in both long guns and Glocks specifically.
How many Glocks did you purchase last year, do you know?
boy, I don't know.
A lot.
Mostly 17s or 19s, what do you?
We did a transition from 45 caliber to 9
To 9
millimeter.
millimeter, yeah. And then the jail is just now, right, John?
Yeah, we did 93 in FY19.
Yeah.
Those babies
93.
last.
So we can research that some more and give you a little.
Okay, now
bit
is
more
ammunition included in this line?
That's the
item
next,
too?
that's the next line.
Okay, well, I wanna talk about that too.
Yeah, as long as we're on that.
Yeah, so the ammunition in my line out here, just some anecdotal information, is the sheriff's office currently has 95 .223 rifles, 305 9mm handguns, and 105 shotguns, and each sworn position is required to qualify and train with these weapons and systems multiple times during the year. There's a breakdown on the cost here that Lieutenant Higgins put this together for he's our range lieutenant. Each newly hired deputy patrol or jail requires approximately 2,000 rounds of handgun ammunition, 500 rounds of rifle, and 100 rounds of shotgun ammo to train, just to onboard them. Costing just over $1,000 for a patrol deputy and $775 for a jail deputy. There's also other department mandated training, such as tactical shooting, low light shooting, and other types of training over and above just a simple qualification. On average, each patrol deputy expends about $130 in ammunition costs, which the average running about $11,300 for qualifications and ongoing training, which does not include the SWAT team. The annual patrol budget supplies ammunition for all of operations and admin, and the annual ammunition costs are about $29,000 for hire and mandatory quals and training.
And then you want to recycle, or I should say rotate your ammunition, so that
Yeah, the duty,
ammunition doesn't last forever.
right.
And we wanna make sure it goes bang when we pull it.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And this year we are.
But if you're in training, shooting at a paper target, it's okay.
Well, that's what we use that, way to
Okay,
cycle that out.
okay.
Yeah, and one of the things he mentions in here is that, let me find it here. This line item has increased due to the need to replace nearly all of our duty and practice ammo. In prior years, we've had to limit our ammo purchase due to budget constraints and need to purchase other gun and range supplies. This causes our ammo supply to drop to near nothing prior to 2019. The increase in this line item is a result of the gun suppliers and range.
And I don't understand why we have to replace all our practice ammunition.
I don't know enough about it.
Okay, I'd like to know more about
It's
that.
implying that there's a shelf life to it. I
Right,
think
well.
I've had bullets in my deer hunting rifle for probably 20 years.
And it still goes bang, right?
Yeah.
The little bit I know about that, I think the replace what they mean is we've been using more than we've been buying, so that our stock is very, very low. We
Right.
just about ran out of ammunition. I believe that's what the replace means on that, not that we're gonna throw. it
Okay, but I'd like to know more about that.
Sure.
Historically, when Desert Storm first started, we couldn't buy ammo. Neither could anybody else, but we
Mhm.
couldn't buy ammo. And when we did buy ammo, we bought in large bulk and stored it for some time, but
Mhm.
we haven't been buying as much because we've been using it that full. So
Okay.
you never know about who's gonna scratch their nose wrong at the least, and we'll not have a lot of
Dena?
ammunition.
We have about 7 minutes left,
Yes, ma'am.
so
Make it good, huh?
Are there any big
Well,
data asks
yeah,
that you
that's
would
what-
like the sheriff and I to work on?
Well, let's see, is there anything else that's glaring here? The one that strikes me, going down, Dena, was it Seminar Professional Association, you got a 50% increase. Almost 34,000 to 50,000. Yep, right there.
That, I know Dena had mentioned providing the training spreadsheets for each division to you,
Yes.
Okay.
which will break out individually what all that training costs for.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
we can consolidate all of those training detail sheets and send those to you.
And did we touch on vehicle repair? That's 3 line items down, 8502. We've got a
Yes.
very substantial increase.
What number's that?
8502 vehicle repair.
My notes indicated we just adjusted to reflect the 3-year average.
Okay.
This line item is used for repairs supplied by outside vendors to include alignments, transmission repairs, repainting of patrol cars, annual maintenance on the mobile command center, and it was adjusted to reflect the 3-year trend. That's what the notes say.
Okay.
And the older the cars get, obviously, the
Mhm.
higher that number's gonna be.
Right. So Dena, back to your question.
Are there any, other items you can think of that you would like us to do some research on for you?
I wanna know a little bit about the 90-10, the specifically boats.
That's actually, the capital ask is mainly for cars.
That's the
That's the police cars.
Yeah, I know,
30-something cars.
police and boats, and I was just wondering, Mike, boats is in there, and
No, we're not asking for any votes, it's just,
Oh.
it's all inclusive in the line
It's all
item.
inclusive in
Yeah.
the line item.
Yeah.
Can we
Okay.
change that number to 15 right now?
We can.
we can do anything we want.
Let's do it.
Sure.
Would you like to?
To start.
Yeah,
Okay.
Start.
Good,
Bill?
good.
15.
And there was also a mention of reducing this 4 to 2. Or do we wanna wait for fleet management before we tell them
Okay to wait.
Yeah, I was thinking about waiting
Yeah.
to,
that? Okay.
Which one was that, Dena?
That's
check detect.
the,
Oh,
unmarked,
gotcha.
detective pickups.
and are those personal radios right up above?
Where's that?
Well, it says computer equipment for 131,000.
Those are the mobile radios, the current radios we have, they're not servicing them anymore, Motorola doesn't make parts for them anymore.
Mhm.
And we have to upgrade our mobile radios in our vehicles.
I think Lieutenant Miller put together the capital request on that, I think those are for 20 portables,
Well, that one's 24 and
20 portable dual.
Cause I know that was one of the things with the new cars, is we had to have radios go with.
Do we need 20?
According to him, yes.
According to who?
Lieutenant Miller is our radio
Hmm.
person.
Okay.
Says they will replace existing radios that have reached end of life, serviceability.
And that's in your forms. In your book.
For what it's worth, when they did that last year, we had 15 new staff we hired, and for the jail, we just took their old radios, and then as they've been taking them out of service, we've been putting them into the jail, and as radios go down, we're just getting by with the old, we're not buying the new, so there is some use for those still.
Mhm.
It's just when they finally go out, then they're a booking. Not repairable.
Okay.
Nice paperwork.
All right.
All right, I think it's a decent start.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
good start. Thank you, everyone.
There was no blood, that's good.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Public comment? I don't hear of any. It is 2:57 PM. And special thanks to Dena for all your hard work and your team, Michelle, Jen. Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank